There's a small island off Nova Scotia's south shore, rocky, wind-torn, and surrounded by restless seas. It's called East Irondbound Island. For more than a century, a lonely lighthouse has stood there, casting its light over the dark Atlantic. It's guided ships through fog, storms, and winter ice, and some say it still keeps watch long after its keepers left. This is Memory Archives, and tonight we're opening our first file on the East Irondbound Lighthouse, a story of isolation, endurance, and echoes in the fog. East Ironbound sits near Lunenburg Bay, a stretch of water once bustling with schooners, fishing boats, and coastal traders. The island isn't large, just a few kilometers long, but it's ringed with cliffs that make navigating treacherous. In 1870, after too many ships ran aground on the reefs nearby, the government ordered a light built on the island's eastern tip. The first lighthouse was a small wooden tower, painted white with a red lantern. Beside it stood a modest keeper's house, simple but sturdy enough to face the Atlantic gales. Keeping that light was no easy life. The families who lived there spent months cut off from the mainland. Supplies came only when the weather allowed. Children were schooled at home. Communication with the outside world was limited to passing boats or the occasional mail run. One keeper's wife once described the winters as beautiful but cruel. Ice would crust the windows so thick that daylight turned blue inside the house. When fog swallowed the island, the horn would blow for hours, sometimes days at a time. Yet somehow, life continued. Families raised gardens, kept hens, and fished from the shore. Each evening, the keeper would climb the narrow stairs to the tower to light the lamp, a ritual of care and vigilance that never changed. For nearly 100 years, the East Irondbound Lighthouse was tended by human hands. Fathers taught sons how to trim the wicks, polish the lens, and read the clouds. It wasn't just a job. It was a duty passed down through generations. When storms threatened, keepers would stay awake all night, praying the glass wouldn't shatter and the flame wouldn't die. Because if it did, lives could be lost. The families became legends along the coast. Locals recall how, even during hurricanes, the light never failed. It was said you could see it flickering like a heartbeat through the rain. But by the late 20th century, technology changed everything. In the 1960s and 70s, automated beacons began replacing keepers across Nova Scotia. East Irondbound was no exception. The last keeper locked the door, took one last look at the sea, and left the island quiet for the first time in generations. Since then, the lighthouse has stood empty, its lantern dark, its windows clouded with salt. Or at least, mostly empty. Because when a place holds that much memory, that much solitude, it rarely stays silent for long. Visitors say the island feels alive. The air seems to hum. Footsteps echo when no one's there, and the old keeper's house? Locals say its curtains move, even when the windows are nailed shut. Stories of hauntings on East Irondbound are hard to trace. They pass mostly by word of mouth, from fishermen, sailors, and hikers who've braved the island. One story tells of a maintenance worker who arrived years after the light was automated. He spent the night in the keeper's house to avoid a sudden storm. Around midnight, he was woken by the unmistakable sound of boots climbing the tower stairs. Slow, deliberate, one step at a time. But when he opened the door, the room was empty. Another tale speaks of a light, a faint glow that appears in the lantern room on foggy nights. Residents on the mainland, miles away, have reported seeing it. They say the old keeper still tends the lamp, unwilling to abandon his post. There are whispers, too, of a woman's voice carried on the wind. Perhaps one of the wives who waded through endless storms, calling for a husband lost at sea. Fishermen claim that when the fog rolls in, they sometimes hear a faint clang of a bell that hasn't rung in decades. Of course, skeptics have their explanations. Wind through broken windows, the reflections of passing ships, the tricks of an overactive imagination. But in a place where isolation once ruled every hour of every day, it's easy to understand why these stories cling to the stones. The line between memory and haunting can be thin, and on East Ironbound, it may have vanished completely. Lighthouses hold a strange power in our minds. They're symbols of safety, but also of solitude. Buildings made to be alone. For the keepers who served there, every day was an act of faith. Faith that the light would hold, that help would come, and that the world remembered they were out there. And perhaps that's why so many lighthouses across the Maritimes are said to be haunted. Not because of fear, but because they're filled with memory. The echoes of voices, footsteps, laughter, and loss never quite leave. Maybe what we call ghosts are simply the remnants of life, the lingering duty of those who refuse to let the light go dark. Today, the East Irondbound Lighthouse still stands, weathered but proud, its white tower facing the sea. Few visit now, but from the shore it's still visible, a reminder of endurance, of isolation, and of stories that refuse to fade. Whether you believe in hauntings or not, some lights keep burning, even when no one's left to tend them. I'm Haley Kristen, and this is Memory Archives. If you have stories of your own to add to the archive, please send them our way. Until next time, keep your lanterns burning.